Fundamentals of Chinese 4, Unit 5, Renting an Apartment. Calling about an apartment for rent. Understand it. Turn to pages 212 and 214 to 214 in your textbook and be ready to take notes. Okay, Wang Peng is making a phone call to inquire about an apartment for rent. So he starts off by saying, 喂，请问你们是不是有公寓出租? Okay, now everything here should be familiar to you. So pause and write down what you think this means. I'll say it one more time. 喂，请问你们是不是有公寓出租? So pause and write down what you think this means. Okay. Hello, excuse me, do you have an apartment for rent? So remember, 喂 is how the Chinese greet on the phone when you're first either answering the phone or first making contact with the person on the other end, on the other line. 请问, excuse me, 你们, do you all, 是不是, right? True or not true. Have an apartment to rent out. So you remember the question, 有公寓出租. So here's the main verb. Do you have an apartment that's available? And so the person on the other line, on the other end, says 有啊. So he responds answering using, like we do in Chinese in most cases, you answer with the verb that the question was asked with. 有啊. Alright, and then the individual goes on to describe 一房一厅非常干净还带家具. Okay, so this 一房一厅, 一房 literally means one room, but when you're talking about apartments, 一房 means there's one bedroom. So we talk about apartments as being one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom. Now, you know bedroom is 卧室, but when they're talking about apartments, they don't say, 一卧室, 一个卧室, 两个卧室. They usually don't say that. They say 一房 or 两房 or 三房. Okay, one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom. And then 厅 means there's a living room. So this has 一房一厅非常干净还带家具. So let's take a look at the end of this sentence here. Okay, 干净. So 干 literally means dry. 干净, this word means clean. 干净非常干净. So we have 有啊一房一厅非常干净还带家具. Okay. So you should be able to sort this out. Please pause and write down what you think this means. Okay, hopefully you came up with something close to, yes, there is an apartment, 有啊, one bedroom, one living room, 一房一厅, very clean, 非常干净,非常干净, and then finally 还带家具. So 还 here is also, 带 means to come with, something comes with something else. A comes with B. 带家具 you know is furniture. 还带家具. Okay, So Wang Peng's a little curious about the furniture. 有什么家具?有什么家具? Okay, what do you think this means? Pause and write down. All right, what is there for furniture? There is what furniture, literally? Okay, so the individual then goes on to explain what there is. 客厅里有一套沙发，一张饭桌跟4把椅子。卧室里有一张床，一张书桌和一个书架。Okay, so I've listed all of the furniture items that are here. There's 5 of them. So 沙发 is actually a Chinese word that was kind of stolen from English. You'll see that 沙发 sounds kind of like sofa. 沙发. So the Chinese didn't have a word for sofa, and so they just borrowed ours. 沙发 makes it easier to remember. A dining table is very simply a food table. You know, 饭 means food or meal. So you have 饭桌, 桌 means table. 桌子, 饭桌 is a dining table. 椅子 is a chair. 书桌, so you have 桌 again. 桌 means table. And you know 书 means a book. So a book table, 书桌 is a desk. And then you have 书 again, 书架. 书架, a 书架 is a bookcase. So, pause and write down what you think this sentence means. And we have there is a sofa in the living room. So 客厅里有一套沙发, a dining table, 一张饭桌, with 4 chairs, 跟4把椅子. 把 is the measure word for chair. 卧室里 in the bedroom 有一张床 there's a bed. 有一张书桌 there's a table. And 和一个书架 a bookcase. Alright, so we have Wang Peng asks another question. He asks, 你们那里安静不安静? Okay, so here we have this way of asking a question where you, in this case it's an adjective, where the adjective is repeated with bu in the middle. 安静不安静, and it's a way of asking a yes-no question. So 你们那里, so 那里 is there. Okay, over there. 那里. And 安静 means quiet. 安静 is quiet. This word 安 means peaceful. And it's interesting character because this top part with the here it means like a roof, or the roof over a house, so like a house or a home. And then inside the home is a woman or a wife or a mother, and so symbolizing a home with a mother, and that's a peaceful concept. And so an means peaceful. 安静. So Wang Peng is very concerned, and so he asks, 你们那里安静不安静? So what's he asking? Pause and write this down. So he wants to know, is it quiet there? And the individual responds, 非常安静. So that's pretty straightforward. 非常安静. Pause and write down what you think this means. very quiet. Okay, the next important question that you want to know, rent, 房租. So you remember 房, it means a room. In 租, from a few slides before, you saw 出租, rent. 租 is rent, so 房租 literally is room rent or rent. So 每个月房租多少钱？每个月房租多少钱？ Pause and write down what you think this means. How much is the rent each month? We might ask, we might just ask how much is the rent, but this included 每个月, so I put each month here. Okay, 850元, 850元, 850元. So 850元, yuan means it's the measure word for the Chinese unit or dollar, currency unit or dollar. So it's 850元. So how much is the rent? Pause and write down. $850. Okay, so he's trying to figure out how that relates to, how much is the rent in both US dollars and Chinese dollars. So US dollars, you have this yuan again, so it's American dollar. So we have 美元, 美元. So 850美元, right? $850. 人民币, right? This is the people's currency. 人民 means people, and 币 is currency. So 人民币 literally is the people's currency for Chinese dollars. So 人民币差不多是有一点儿贵，能不能便宜点儿? Okay, so let's figure out what the rest of the sentence is saying. 差不多 is a very common phrase in Chinese, and it means almost, nearly, or similar. 差 means short, or short of, short, meaning missing, right? Missing. And 不多 means not a lot. So short by not so much, or missing by not so much, okay? Which basically means almost, right? 差不多. So he's 850美元, 人民币差不多是, and then he says some amount here that's not important. And then he thinks 有一点儿贵, 能不能便宜点儿? You should be able to recall this here. So pause and write down what you think this means. Okay, so $850 US, 850美元. That's about so much money in Chinese yuan. 人民币差不多是. Okay, they probably don't give a specific amount here because the currency value is always changing between 美元and 人民币, so they just left out an amount. And 有一点儿贵, that's a little expensive. 有一点儿贵, that's a little expensive. 能不能便宜点儿? Can you make it cheaper? Okay, and the individual points out, okay, it may be expensive, but 那你不用付水电费. 那你不用付水电费. Okay. 费 is a fee. Okay, sort of a fee, what you pay for something. So if you remember what 水 and 电, these are two different things. shui and dian. So we have the shui fi and the dian fi, or the shui fei or dian fei. So pause and write down what you think this means. Okay, remember, na kind of means then. All right then, right? So it's carrying from the previous portion of the conversation. Na ni, all right then, you, right? Or okay, all right then, okay. 你不用付水电费. You don't have to pay water and electricity. Okay, so there's a little negotiation going on there. All right, Wang Peng asks another important question when considering an apartment to rent. 要不要付押金? 要不要付押金? Okay, 押金 is a deposit. Jin is the word for gold. And so it's used in this word 押金 to mean deposit. So this is pretty straightforward. What do you think it means? Pause and write down. Do I have to pay a deposit? 要不要付押金? Okay. The individual responds, 要多付一个月的房租等押金，搬出去的时候还给你。另外，我们公寓不准养宠物。Okay, so to the initial question about the 押金，要多付，多付。So 付 you know is the verb to pay. So 要多付一个月的房租等押金。Okay, so this dung here, dung has a lot of meanings, but the meaning here is to serve as or to be. Okay, so let's continue. There's more in this sentence. 还. Okay, you've learned this character as 还, which means still. I still have more work to do, right? Still. But 还 also has a different pronunciation, which is 还, and it's used as in to return something, not return as in to return to home or return to some place, but return in the sense of returning some property that belongs to someone else, like returning your deposit after you leave an apartment, or returning a book to the library, or returning something that you borrowed from a friend. Okay, so you can't return home or return to Boston with this verb. That's 回. 回家 is to go back home, right? Or 回波士顿, return back to Boston. Okay, that's a different return. That's like a person returning to some place or location. This is 还, and it means return, meaning returning something to somebody. 还. Okay, what else do we have here? 准. Okay, 准 means allow. Okay, so 另外, you should remember, 另外 means in addition. So in addition to this issue about the 押金, the deposit, there's some other issue that the guy wants to raise, and that is 另外我们公寓不准养宠物. So what is 养宠物? Okay, 宠物is a pet. 宠物 is the word for pet. Now, here's an example of different ways of expressing between English and Chinese. In English, we usually say have pets. Do you have a pet? Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? So when people are inquiring about other people's pets, the verb that's used is to have. Do you have a pet? Okay, Yes, I have a dog and 2 cats. Okay, now you know the Chinese word for have is 有, and you could say 有 to say I have a dog or I have a cat. 我有一只狗，我有一只猫. Okay, you could say that, and you'd be understood, and the Chinese might even say that sometimes. But their habit more often is to use this verb here, 养, which means to raise a pet. So you can't really directly translate here, right? The Chinese say raise, we say have. So when you're translating from English to Chinese, I have a dog, you translate it as I raise a dog. Okay? Or if you're translating from Chinese into English, you would say I raise a dog, and that would be translated into I have a dog. Okay? So this guy here says 另外我们公寓不准养宠物. Okay? So pause and write down what you think this means. Okay. So you have to pay an extra month's rent. Okay? Extra here is 多. So this 多 can be used, 多 means more, right? And 多 can be used before this verb and some other verbs. Can be used to mean pay more. Pay more. Okay? 多吃, you need to eat more. 多喝, you need to drink more. 多睡觉, you need to sleep more. 多学习, you need to study more. Okay? 多付, you need to pay more. In this case, you have to pay more by a month of rent to serve as the deposit. So you have to pay an extra month's rent as a deposit. You must pay more a month, by a month, pay a month more of rent to serve as the deposit. 搬出去, 搬出去, move out, move out. 搬出去的时候, when you move out. 搬出去的时候, when you move out. 还给你, return. And the Chinese like to put 给 after 还. You could say 还你, but they also like to say 还给你, return to you. So return it to you. The deposit will be returned to you after you move out. 另外, in addition, 我们公寓, our apartment, 不准, doesn't allow, 养宠物, pets. Okay, Wang Peng responds, 没关系，我对养宠物没有兴趣。没有兴趣. Okay, 兴趣 is interest, not interest as in interest from your bank. You can't, if you go to the bank and ask them how much 兴趣 do I get in my savings account, no one's going to understand you, because 兴趣 only means interest in the sense of being interested in something. If you go into a bank and talking about interest on your money at a bank, then the word for that is 利息, but we're not learning that right now. Okay, so Wang Peng, in response to the rule about pets, says 没关系，我对养宠物没有兴趣，什么宠物都不养，都不养. Okay, so this grammatical construction here is going to be covered in a grammar point in the grammar video. So you can go to the grammar video to see more examples of this, and also look in your book. But basically, this construction, you use 什么. Okay, you have a question word here, 什么. Okay, and you could use any question word. It could be who, what, where, when, or how. And you use this question word, 什么. You notice it's not a question, right? There's no question mark here, but it's a question word and it can be who, what, where, when, how, or and whatnot. And then you know, the object of the sentence, or what's being discussed. In this case, it's pets. And then so you have the question word, and then the thing being talked about, and then you have do or ye. In this case, they use do, so you know do means all, and ye means also. But don't worry so much about what this means specifically. You need to pay attention to what the whole grammatical pattern means. So you have the question word, the object of what's being discussed, a do that you have to put in there, and then bu, and then the verb yang. And basically it means this particular sentence means I don't have any pets. I don't have any pets. Okay? I don't have any pets. 什么宠物都不养. I don't have any pets. Okay? Just to give you a quick example, you'll see more examples in the grammar video. But if someone asks you, where do you want to go this weekend? And let's say you're tired, so your answer is, I don't want to go anywhere. Okay? So in Chinese, if you want to respond by saying, I don't want to go anywhere, you respond by saying, 我哪儿都不想去. So 我哪儿, question word, you don't need an object in this case. You just say 都, 我哪儿都不想去. Want to go, don't want to go. I don't want to go anywhere. 我哪儿都不想去. I don't want to go anywhere. Okay. In this case, it's 什么宠物都不养. Okay. So pause and write down what you think this means. All right, 没关系, no problem. The rule about pets to Wang Peng is no problem. 我对养宠物没有兴趣. Right? I'm not interested in pets. I don't have any pets. 什么宠物都不养. I don't have any pets. I don't raise any pets. Alright, so the individual then responds by saying, 那太好了. 你今天下午来看看吧. 那太好了. 你今天下午来看看吧. So pause and write down what you think this means. Okay, great. Come have a look this afternoon. And Wang Peng responds by saying 好. And that concludes this Understand It video.